Brandon. Welcome to my channel, Books in the Shire. This video is slightly overdue. I honestly forgot that I was going to film a December wrap-up, and then I literally last night was laying in bed and I was like, shit, I haven't done that yet. We're just a little bit behind, but that's okay. I mean, it's up, it's going. I'm filming, so it's happening. So to start off, I read 9 books in December, which is crazy high for me. I think the most I've read in a month before has been 8 books, so I did pretty good. 3 of these books are short, but I was still able to read a lot, so honestly, I don't even care. I'm glad with what I read. I read a total of 3,608 pages, which is insane to me. I think I read like 16 to 17,000 in the whole year, so the fact that I was able to read almost 4,000 in 1 month is insane, because that's a fourth of what I read for the year, basically. A lot of my ratings for December were all across the board. Like, I had some 2 stars, some 5 stars, some 3s and 4s. Like, it was pretty wide variety of ratings. I didn't have anything below a 2 though, but I mean, I've never rated a book 1 star, so I doubt that's gonna happen anytime soon. My average star rating was 3.5 stars, so I think that's like pretty decent. I mean, I enjoyed most of the books I read from that number, I would say. Technically, I read all of these books physically, but at the same time, I didn't. So for 6 of the books, I listened to the audiobook while following along physically. So I don't know how you would want to categorize that, whether it be audiobook or physical. I put it as physical just because I was actively engaged. It was just someone reading it aloud to me, basically, but classify what you will. I'm going to classify it as physical. The first book that I read in December was Rainy and the Mermaid Lagoon. This is, I believe, the 5th book in the Pixie Hollow series. 4th or 5th, I can't remember which exactly. And it was a fun, good read. Damien, I'm sorry, my cat is making noise, so if you can hear that, just ignore him. But this was a fun, quick read. I gave it 4 stars. I think it's a good kids book. I don't really have much to say about it though, just because it is a kids book. There was nothing really special about it, but it was definitely a good, well done book. The next book I read is The Bones of Ruin by Sarah Raleigh. This is a YA fantasy. This is the first in a new series by Sarah Raleigh. I really enjoyed the first half of this book. It really kept me intrigued. But I think after about halfway through, there was a lot of info dump and it got confusing at times, so it was kind of hard to follow along with the premise sometimes. I really enjoyed the characters. I liked the plot elements, but because of all that info dumping, it made it hard to follow. I still really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, but I'm a little concerned for the second book because of how confusing it could be at times, but I still really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to reading the second book. I just have to know going in, I need to be prepared, like ready to use my brain, which I don't use a lot, so. The next book is one that honestly, I have so many mixed feelings. If you watched my tier ranking video, I briefly spoke about it, but I literally cannot tell you how I feel about this book. It's so mixed, but that is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I gave this book 2 stars, but I liked it. I kind of don't know how to describe my feelings for it. The characters I wasn't really a big fan of. I thought they were boring, typical YA characters that added nothing to the plot, really. It just didn't feel like it was trying to do anything new or unique. It felt like it was just following the stereotypical groundwork of YA books, and that's what it was. I felt like some of the plot lines were added in just for the sake of, this is like a fantasy trope, right? Let's throw it in. And it's like, but what did that add to the plot? I didn't completely understand it. It had fun moments, it had some fun plots, the character interactions sometimes were interesting, but nothing really stood out. However, I really think I'm going to read the second book because I hate myself. So I probably will. And I hope this like doesn't sound awful, but it kind of read like a fan fiction, and I know there's really good fan fictions out there. I've read them, trust me. But this one, it wasn't like a good fan fiction to me, and that's just my personal opinion. If you love this book, that's really awesome. But for me, it just like was kind of a miss, but it was like good trash, and I'm probably gonna still read the series, so. Am I trash then? Probably. Next, I read The Devil's Thief by Lisa Maxwell. This is the second book in the Last Magician series, and I gave this book 4 stars, but I think upon reflection, I probably would have rated it 3 stars. This was like good. It was definitely well done. I really enjoyed Maxwell's writing. I think it's done well. The characters are written well. They have good character arcs. But for me, what was lacking kind of was the plot. The author was trying to add in character moments or plot moments that felt so unnecessary. And so it kind of took me out. I was just like, oh, it's just dragging on. When's it gonna keep moving, you know? And also it felt similar to the first book where there's a heist story again. And I think the first book, I gave the first book 5 stars. I think the first book did a really well done heist. The characters were really intriguing. They kept me engaged, and it was shorter. Where this one, they tried to do a heist again. It fell a little flat, and the characters weren't enough to keep me engaged the whole time. I felt like this book too had tried to do a little too much. They reveal, I won't like spoil anything, but they do reveal a big part of the plot and how magic functions in this society. And to me, it was like, that's really grandiose for no reason. Like, I felt like this story was really grounded in the first book and really grounded in reality in particular. Like, despite them having magic, you felt like this is a world that exists. But then this one, it was just like, it didn't feel like this world could exist. It felt insane, which I get, it's a fantasy, it's kind of supposed to do that, but is based in real world, so that's why it was hard for me to kind of imagine it. Next I have Cinder by Marissa Meyer. This is the first book in the Lunar Chronicle series, and honestly, I don't know why it took me so long to read these books. I really enjoyed this book. It was so engaging. I loved the twist on the fairy tale, and it never felt, you know, obviously it's a retelling, so you already know the story of Cinderella, but it never felt predictable. I didn't know what was going to happen because it is remixed quite well. I gave this book 4.5 stars, and I think the reason it's a 4.5 and not a 5 is because the villain, I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but she was just a little boring to me. It was like they were trying to make her really scary and intimidating, which she was at points, but sometimes I was like, this is just kind of lame. Like, it didn't feel like there were high enough stakes. Even though there were high stakes, it never felt warranted at points. I think that's why I took off that 0.5 stars. But I really loved this. I can understand why everyone enjoys this series, and I'm definitely going to be continuing. Next, I read Lore Olympus Volume 1 by Rachel Smith. It was a webtoons comic before it became a graphic novel, and I never read the comics online. I had heard of them, I knew people who read them, but I personally never read them. And then once I saw this get published, I was like, might as well pick it up. I did, and I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars, so it's like not bad, but not great either. It felt like a typical, you know, romance between 2 characters, and there was nothing that stood out about it to me. I do really like the coloring of the art. The art style necessarily isn't my favorite, but the colors are really beautiful. Like, it's just so nice. And that really kind of like drew me in, was the colors. It kind of felt just like a basic romance to me. Nothing special, but I definitely would probably continue with this series. I did have a good time reading it, and I would recommend it to people who are into like Greek mythology, retellings, and like graphic novels and romance. Now for my 5-star read of the month, that is Heartstopper Volume 2 by Alice Oseman. This was so freaking cute. This one focuses on Nick trying to figure out his sexuality, and never at one point were people rude to him about it. They were all so supportive, and it was just so nice to see. Super cute, loved the art style, and I really love their relationship. I'm definitely looking forward to reading the 3rd volume. The second to last book that I read in December is A Spindle, Splintered by Alex E. Harrow. This is an adult retelling of Sleeping Beauty, basically. I gave this 3 stars. It is a novella, and this is the first novella I've ever read. And I don't think novellas are for me. I'm definitely not going to hit it since I've only read one, but I'm going to be cautious about future ones that I read because I really enjoyed the story. I thought it was well done, but it was so short and I wanted so much more from it. I think if this was a full-length novel, it would have done so much better, for me at least, because you really could get to know characters a bit better and the plot lines would be more fleshed out. Despite not loving how short it was, I am going to probably continue with this series because I think it was a good reimagining to the Sleeping Beauty fairy tale. It was just definitely a little short for my liking, but now I kind of know what to be prepared for with the next book. So I'm definitely interested in reading more. The last book that I read in December is The Serpent's Curse by Lisa Maxwell. This is the third book in the Last Magician series, and I gave this 3 stars, but upon reflection, I think I would give it 4. I think this one and The Devil's Thief would switch rating-wise for me because I think I actually enjoyed this one better than The Devil's Thief. I have a lot of same critiques with this one as I do with The Devil's Thief, where I think the 1902 plotline is not necessarily necessary. Isn't totally necessary because you kind of already know what's going to happen because you have future timelines and you already know how those end and everything. So I don't know, it just kind of felt unnecessary to have that 1902 plotline. And I felt like there were a lot of moments that were added in just for characters and not necessarily to go with the plot. And I'm slowly learning that I'm more of a plot reader than a character-based reader, so I think that's why these books don't completely reel me in, I guess, because they are I think it's very equal on plot and character, sometimes leaning a bit more towards characters. I do like, though, that for a lot of this book, I think about half or so, our main characters are split up, so that's definitely what drew me in, was seeing these characters being alone or being with groups they wouldn't necessarily be with and trying to figure out how to, you know, go around, you know, do stuff. I don't really know how to describe it, but they were separated and I really enjoyed that. It made it more interesting for me, especially our 2 main characters. They were separated and I really liked that because you kind of got to know a bit more about each of these characters on their own rather than them together because they've been together the past 2 books. Those are all the books that I read in December. I had a really good reading month. I'm really proud of what I was able to read. I think because I wasn't in school, I could read a lot more than I typically do, which was super nice. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I will see you in another video.